The man only activated a basic class skill. Yet everyone around him was stunned on the spot, because with a single move, he instantly took control of 20 creatures and made them fight for him. Even more terrifying, every creature he killed gave his abilities a noticeable boost. Seeing this, the man could not help but smile. As long as he kept hunting monsters, even he could not imagine how far his strength would grow. And this man with abnormal power was named Regoa. To test his brand new skill, he arrived at the central portal of the city. He looked around and saw many beginner players nearby, seemingly looking for teammates to enter with. While Regoa was observing his surroundings, someone walked over and asked if he wanted to join their party. Regoa only replied calmly, "A low-level dungeon like this doesn't need a party." After hearing that, the man gave an awkward laugh and had no choice but to return to his group. Looking at Regoa not far away, the man still could not help saying, "He looks like a beginner. Is he really going to be okay going in alone?" The girl clicked her tongue. "Brother, he didn't join our team anyway. Stop worrying about him." At that moment, Regoa chuckled softly. The Ancient Garden dungeon was only 1-star difficulty, but the map itself was ridiculously huge. As Regoa moved forward, he wondered where all the monsters were hiding. Just then, in the grass not far away, a monster was gripping a long sword, quietly preparing to ambush him. Regoa sensed movement from the side, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Didn't expect one to come knocking this fast. In the next second, another monster launched a sneak attack from behind him. It rushed out at incredible speed, clearly aiming to kill him in one strike. But after sensing the movement behind him, Regoa only shifted his body slightly and easily dodged the attack. In the instant he dodged, he reached back and grabbed the goblin from behind. "You can be my first skill test subject. White Knight, activate. Undead magic rapidly transformed into holy magic." Once the attribute conversion was complete, Regoa immediately cast another holy spell. Life Drain. The goblin's life force began draining away at high speed. Regoa was slightly surprised. He had not expected Life Drain cast with holy magic to work this quickly. Then he switched back to undead magic and continued absorbing, immediately feeling a faint but real enhancement in his body. System notification. You have absorbed the pixie's life force. Base attributes increased. Strength increased by 0.1. Agility increased by 0.1. Regoa's eyes lit up. If he could kill monsters in large numbers, wouldn't his attributes increase dramatically too? Just then, a voice suddenly rang out. "Are you surprised by the effect of your skill? This is the benefit I brought you. Attribute growth." Regoa truly had not expected the skill to be this powerful. "Rise. Fight for me." The moment necromantic summoning activated, the goblin that had already died suddenly climbed back up from the ground. System notification. Undead goblin awakened. Attributes increased by 97%. Goblin type, zombie race. Classified as undead. Now that he had a summon, Regoa could finally take things a little easier. From here on, it was time for the real dungeon hunt. And right at that moment, several more goblins walked out of the forest not far away. Regoa had just been thinking about testing his summon's combat power. Seeing them, he gave a faint laugh. "You came at the perfect time." In the next second, the undead goblin charged forward instantly. It had no fighting technique to speak of. It simply bit down on the monster and refused to let go. Seeing this, the other goblins froze for a moment, as if they could not understand why one of their own was attacking them. Immediately after, one goblin stabbed straight through the undead goblin's heart. But the undead goblin had already become an undead creature. Even if it was struck in a fatal spot, it was still extremely hard to kill. Taking advantage of the chaos, Regoa grabbed another goblin. These were all walking attribute points. There was no way he would let them go. Soon, the goblin whose attributes had been drained dry was casually thrown to the ground. Behind him, the undead goblin also killed the final monster. This skill could absorb attributes from living creatures. The only question was whether it could also work on dead ones. In the next moment, excitement appeared in Regoa's eyes. It seemed this skill could actually work on corpses too. In that case, it was time to speed things up. In the eyes of a necromancer, as long as he could kill the first monster, the hunt was already halfway done. Based on Regoa's current ability, he could perfectly control up to 20 summons in battle. In the next second, Regoa spoke in a low voice. Necromantic summoning. The goblins that had already died all rose from the ground. The goblins he summoned were already tireless battle tools, and on top of that, their attributes had been boosted by 97%. Necromancer truly was one of the most outstanding classes. Then, Regoa gave his order directly. hunt down every living creature nearby without discrimination. In an instant, the surrounding goblins fell into total chaos. After only a short while, all 20 goblins had already fallen under his control. With an undead army like this helping him level up, the efficiency was almost ridiculous. The remaining living goblins were so frightened that they fled in panic. Right then, a quiet voice came from not far away. Fire arrow launch. The goblin that had been trying to escape was instantly killed by a flaming arrow. Seeing this, Regoa spoke calmly. Come out. The other side quickly explained, we weren't following you. We just happened to run into you by chance. As they spoke, Regoa looked at them and felt they seemed strangely familiar. Very quickly, he remembered. No wonder they had looked familiar outside the portal earlier. In his previous life, they had once accepted a mission to assassinate him. The people standing before him were exactly the duo that would one day be known as the Twin Shadow Archers. Would fighting them be troublesome? Regoa gave a faint laugh. Right now, they were only at 1-star strength. In his memory, the Twin Shadow Archers had always been a brother and sister duo. In that case, eliminating future enemies ahead of time did seem like the right choice. But Regoa quickly dismissed the thought. They had no real grudge against him. In his previous life, they had only accepted an assassination contract. Just then, the man asked, are all these servants under your control? The necromancer class was still a secret for now. It would only become widely known after some time had passed. Regoa nodded. That's right, these undead servants are all under my control. Clearing the dungeon alone was convenient. But he still needed people to help collect the dropped items. Dead goblins had crystals inside their bodies, and those crystals could be sold outside for money. Regoa asked, are you willing to cooperate with me? The man froze for a moment. What kind of cooperation are you talking about? I'll handle every enemy that appears. You'll stay in the back and collect the monster crystals. As for the total number of crystals, we split them 80-20. Hearing this, the three of them immediately began discussing in low voices. After all, they had never seen anyone control monsters before, so they did not fully trust Regoa. After a long while, Regoa really had not expected such a small issue to take them this long to discuss. If his servants could collect the crystals for him, he would not need to cooperate with these people at all. Right then, the man finally said, I agree to your proposal, but I think the split should be 50-50. There are 3 of us. Even with a 50-50 split, each of us won't get much. Regoa replied calmly, the most I can accept is 70-30. If you can't agree to that, then the cooperation is off. Boss, are you really going to work with him? He doesn't mean us any harm. If he really wanted to attack us, we'd already be dead. Accepting this man's offer will probably earn us more than acting on our own. A short while later, the man finally broke down and shouted, let me rest for a second. This is the first time I've ever picked up so many crystals my hands actually went numb. He had expected a big haul, but this had already gone far beyond anything he imagined. Just who exactly was this man? The strength he displayed had completely rewritten the man's old understanding of hunters. Regoa reminded them calmly, stop spacing out. There are still plenty of crystals here. Hearing that, the man gave an awkward laugh. Can we rest for just a little while? You can rest without worrying. Just don't forget to keep picking them up. At this moment, everyone had only one impression of Regoa. This guy was definitely not a normal human. Their speed at collecting crystals could not even keep up with Regoa's speed at wiping out monsters. The surrounding monsters had basically all been cleared by him. Now, it was time to check how much his attributes had increased. Only 3 hours had passed, yet Regoa's attributes had already increased by 21.2. At this point, his stats were already on par with an ordinary level 4 player. The timing was about right. It was time to eliminate the Lord. After that, Regoa headed deeper into the forest. Before long, he found the Lord sitting on a throne, while the guards around it stared him down. The Lord muttered, it has been a long time since a human dared to challenge me. Seeing this, Regoa could not help laughing. A mere goblin actually thinks he rules this dungeon? The girl beside him explained. He is the lord of this area, and to all beginner players, he's basically a nightmare. Sensing Regoa's contempt, the Lord roared, bring that human to me. As soon as those words fell, a large number of goblins charged straight toward Regoa. Even if he's a lord, in my eyes, he's still just a low-grade goblin. Charge, my servants. After receiving the order, the undead servants immediately rushed forward. The goblin horde instantly fell into chaos, but Regoa's side was clearly at a huge numerical disadvantage. Soon, one undead servant was torn apart from the head down. System notification, servant count reduced by 1. Seeing this, Regoa was not surprised at all. He simply spoke in a low voice. Rise, my servant. In the next moment, the corpse beside him turned into a servant once again and stood up from the ground. The people nearby could hardly believe what they were seeing. He had actually awakened a corpse and turned it into his slave. Sensing the shift on the battlefield, the Lord finally could not help standing up. It raised the skull staff in its hand and began chanting under its breath. In the next moment, countless skull staffs stabbed into the ground. This was the Lord Wizard's ability, Glory of Honor, which could wildly inspire the surrounding goblins. The goblins instantly turned bloodthirsty, as if they had forgotten pain itself. Regoa gave a fair laugh. It's just low-grade buff magic. As soon as he said that, the totems on the ground were destroyed almost at the same time. The Lord Wizard flew into a rage. A mere human dares to destroy my totems? Then I'll show you true despair. This staff was made from the resentment of hundreds of goblins. It roared. Mass frenzy, activate. In an instant, all the surviving goblins raised their heads and howled. System notification. Goblin strength, agility, and all attributes increased by 50%. The goblins became tireless and fearless of pain, rushing madly to wipe out the servants under Regoa's control. Because there were simply too many goblins, the undead servants were eventually worn down by sheer numbers. But there was no panic on Regoa's face. He only looked slightly surprised. So this is your trump card. Then it's my turn to perform, right? The things you rely on are nothing but a joke to me. A surge of undead power slowly appeared in Regoa's palm as he spoke in a low voice. Bone control. The skull staff in the Lord Wizard's hand suddenly began shaking violently, as if it was about to break free from its grasp. In the next second, the staff shot outward. It landed perfectly in Regoa's hand. Seeing this, the Lord Wizard screamed, "What did you do? Give it back." Regoa only replied calmly, "Anything made from bones falls under my control." After probing it, he realized the resentment inside the staff was even stronger than he had imagined. Looks like after you sacrificed goblins to make this staff, their resentment toward you wasn't small either. Since this staff belongs to you, I'll return it. As soon as he finished speaking, the skull staff shot straight toward the Lord Wizard. The Lord Wizard was horrified because it realized the flying staff was completely ignoring its control. While it was still frozen in shock, the staff pierced straight through its body. The Lord Wizard never imagined that in the end, it would die to the very weapon it was so proud of. The next second, it crashed hard to the ground. Regoa only smiled faintly. What a stupid wizard. Just like that, Regoa easily killed the wizard lord inside the dungeon. This hunt had brought him even better rewards than expected, and his attributes had risen by quite a lot. However, the other three looked completely troubled. Earlier, while Regoa was fighting the lord, he had killed a huge number of goblins, and they were the ones who had to clean up all the crystals. After leaving the dungeon, the four of them instantly became the center of attention, because the number of crystals on the man's back was almost unbelievable. Regoa said, "These crystals can be sold directly at a shop and converted into money. If you're not in a hurry for cash, we can also transport them to the central city and sell them there. That way, we can cut out the middleman's markup." "How much do you think they'll sell for?" After thinking for a moment, the man said, "Probably around 5 million. As they spoke, Regoa took the skull staff off his back. This item had almost no market value. Even if they took it somewhere else, it would be hard to sell. The staff was filled with a curse that made people uneasy. Although it could boost mental power, it would also corrode its owner's mind, and the required class to equip it was actually priest. Priests already had very low resistance to abnormal effects, but this level of curse posed no threat to Regoa at all. So, consider this item bought by me. As for the exact price, we'll talk about it after you sell the crystals." The man hurriedly said, "How could we take more money from you? Thanks to this cooperation, we've already earned what we normally make in an entire year. This item should just go to Mr. Regoa. I don't think anyone here will object." Seeing this, Regoa appreciated the team leader's way of handling things even more. "In that case, I won't refuse. Let's continue working together tomorrow." The next day, inside the ancient garden dungeon, "Mr. Regoa, we really can't keep going. There are too many of them. We seriously don't have the strength to keep processing all this." To make sure they had enough space, they had even brought 3 extra bags today, but they were filling up even faster than yesterday. Seeing this, Regoa said, "In that case, take the crystals back to town first." Kronos asked in confusion, "Why did you deliberately send them back?" Regoa replied calmly, "Because what I'm about to do next is something I don't want anyone to know." After saying that, he headed deeper into the dungeon. This dungeon did not only contain goblins. Different areas had completely different types of monsters. When a group of frogmen suddenly attacked, Regoa did not hesitate to order his servants forward to fight. It was obvious that the frogmen's stats were far higher than the goblins. Before long, a large number of servants died at the hands of the frogmen. But thanks to the servants' inability to feel pain, A few frogmen were still killed during the chaotic battle. Rigoa was just about to summon the dead frogmen. A moment later, a large number of frogmen had become Rigoa's servants. With the frogmen helping him, Rigoa felt much more confident about what came next. Deep inside the dungeon, there was an ancient temple that looked as if no one had visited it in a very long time. Kronos could not help asking, "Rigoa, what exactly are you trying to do?" Rigoa replied calmly, "You'll know soon enough." Then, he took out a dark green heart. It was the heart of a frogman. After that, he took out the blood of the wizard he had killed earlier and dripped it onto the frogman's heart. In the next second, the entire heart began trembling violently. The once lifeless heart seemed to come alive again, beating non-stop. A system notification rang out. "You have successfully triggered the secret of the ancient garden. The ancient trial ground is opening." Immediately after, Rigoa was teleported into an arena. In his previous life, Rigoa had only learned about this secret by chance, but back then, his star rank was already too high, so he could no longer enter the ancient garden dungeon. That was why this time, he was curious about what kind of trial this would be. Within the light screen, a massive dark purple claw slowly stepped out. Shock gradually appeared on Rigoa's face. This was clearly a 1-star trial stage. So why was a dragonkin appearing here? System notification: survive against the dragonkin for 10 minutes to receive the reward. The trial ground was created by the constellation gods for one purpose: to choose outstanding agents. Seeing this, Kronos could not help speaking up. "With your current strength, forget 10 minutes. Even 10 seconds might be a problem. Looks like I'll have to wait a few hundred more years for a new agent." Rigoa, however, remained calm. If he remembered correctly, since the dungeon was 1 star, the dragonkin's strength should also be suppressed to 1 star. But even a 1-star dragonkin was not something an ordinary person could deal with. What he needed to do next was find a way to stall for time. "All servants, prepare to attack." As soon as he said that, the dragonkin stumped heavily against the ground. In the next instant, its figure suddenly vanished. When it appeared again, it was already right in front of Rigoa. Almost at the same time, the frogman servants charged forward without hesitation, trying to block the dragonkin's advance. They clung tightly to the dragonkin's shoulders and body. Even for a dragonkin, shaking them off should take at least some time. But the dragonkin only showed a look of contempt. It swung its right fist toward the frogman hanging from its left shoulder. With just one punch, it killed a frogman on the spot. In less than a minute, every frogman clinging to its body had been killed. Seeing this, Rigoa was not surprised at all. Instead, a hint of excitement appeared in his eyes. Frogmen naturally carried toxins, and after being transformed into servants, those toxins became even stronger. Even if the dragonkin could kill the frogmen quickly, once it was contaminated by the toxins, its speed would still be reduced. After dealing with the frogmen, the dragonkin immediately charged toward Rigoa. In its eyes, Rigoa was the designated main target. Seeing the dragonkin rushing in, Rigoa immediately raised the skull staff and poured mana into it, causing his defense to rise. A protective light screen instantly appeared in front of him. But even with the skull staff's enhancement, completely blocking the dragonkin's attack was still extremely difficult. So the moment the dragonkin struck the protective light screen, Rigoa detonated it directly. In the brief half-second where the dragonkin froze, Rigoa immediately controlled the skull staff and combined it with bone control, sending it stabbing back toward the dragonkin. But the dragonkin's body was far too tough. Even though the staff struck with terrifying speed, it only pierced the back of its hand. The instant the dragonkin roared in pain, the frogmen around it lunged forward again, biting hard into its body and forcing the poison to spread even deeper. The effect showed almost immediately. The dragonkin's movements began to slow, its nerves gradually went numb, and its body started to stiffen. But as a member of the dragonkin race, its pride would never allow it to collapse in such a pathetic state. It forced its body to keep fighting back, smashing the frogmen to death, one after another. But the harder it moved, the faster the poison spread. In the end, it could no longer hold on and dropped heavily to one knee. Rigoa quietly let out a breath of relief. Good thing this was only a 1-star dungeon. He casually recalled the skull staff. If the dungeon level had been even slightly higher, a creature like this would definitely not be something his current self could handle so easily. Then Rigoa walked up to the fallen dragonkin, raised his arm, and said in a low voice, "Life drain activate." At the same time, a system notification rang out. Reward will now be issued. System notification: Rigoa has passed the ancient trial ground. Reward skill obtained. Crown of Tenacity. Mental damage reduced by 40%. Mana circulation speed increased. Focus increased. This type of passive skill was exactly what Regoa needed right now. In the future, even if he was hit by control-type skills, he could greatly shorten the duration of their effects. And the corpse of a dragonkin was already an extremely valuable material. Regoa casually stored the Dragon King's corpse inside his ring. Kronos could not help asking, "What are you planning to do with the Dragonkin's body?" Regoa replied calmly, "Turn it into the most perfect battle tool, of course." However, to fully make use of this Dragonkin corpse, he still needed a true alchemist. So, Regoa soon arrived in Ishikawa Prefecture. According to his memories from his previous life, that person should be living here. Everything in front of him was almost exactly the same as he remembered. Even the rundown streets had not changed. Just then, an explosion suddenly rang out ahead. Regoa smiled helplessly. Looks like this part was exactly the same as in his previous life too. Soon, a figure staggered out from the smoke and dust. The moment Regoa saw him, a smile appeared on his face. It really was him. This miserable-looking man was named Sinia. In the future, he would become one of the top alchemists on the entire continent. Regoa spoke directly. "Sinia, do you have time right now?" Sinia frowned. "I do have time, but who are you?" Regoa said, calmly. "My name is Regoa. I came here because I want to borrow your alchemy tools." Sinia froze for a moment. "Borrow my tools? Why should I lend them to you?" Regoa spoke as if he had already seen through everything. "Don't be so stingy. Lend me your tools, and I'll naturally give you something in return. Aren't you researching a regeneration potion right now? And you just happen to be stuck at a bottleneck." Sinia's expression changed instantly. "How do you know what I'm researching?" Regoa did not explain. He simply continued, "Relax, I'll help you finish it." A moment later, Sinia stood frozen in place, his face filled with disbelief. "The problem that's been bothering me for half a year. You solved it just like that," Regoa said calmly. "The potion is complete, but you're probably more curious about its effect, right?" After saying that, he made a tiny cut on his own hand. Then Regoa poured the potion directly onto the wound. A faint sizzling sound rang out. In the next second, the tiny wound healed completely, as if it had never existed. Seeing this, Sinia's eyes instantly filled with excitement. Regoa gave a faint smile. "Now you want to know the real formula, don't you? As long as you work with me, I'll give you the formula for free. Of course, I'm not going to squeeze you dry. We split the profits 60-40. What do you think? There's no downside for you. Take your time and think it over." After saying that, Regoa casually released the Dragonkin corpse. Even though it was already dead, the pressure it gave off was still terrifying. Sinia froze on the spot. "What kind of creature is this?" Regoa said calmly, "I'm a necromancer, and I'm thinking about turning it into my servant. If you're curious about this creature, come help." Sinia immediately shot back. "I haven't even agreed to work with you yet. Why would I help you?" But even as he said that, he had already walked over. "I'm not helping you. I'm just curious about rare creatures like this." Kronos asked in confusion, "Why is this friend of yours so cautious?" Regoa replied calmly, "Because he was betrayed by a company before. In the past, Sinia had produced a major breakthrough at the largest company in the country, only for his superior to steal all the credit." Regoa looked at Sinia. "The reason you don't want to work with me is because you doubt my ability, right? Then, I'll prove it to you. This is a level 5 crystal. First, control the melting rate at 42%. Then, fuse the crystal with the curse power of a necromancer. After that, the curse power can be engraved into the Dragonkin corpse. Now we're only missing the final core material, an ancient dragon heart." After that, Regoa called the team directly, hoping they could help him find an ancient dragon heart. The next day, on the border front, the team leader spoke up. "Regoa, our team has been waiting for you." As they walked, the leader could not help asking, "I'm curious, why did you choose a dangerous place like the border this time? Ever since the border dungeon collapsed, this area has been crawling with monsters." Regoa only said calmly, "I just want to meet an old acquaintance." According to Regoa's memory, this direction should be correct. Suddenly, a heavy footstep rang out. A giant orc carrying a spear burst out from the side, trying to launch a sneak attack. On the other side, Regoa had already been prepared. Before the orc could even throw its spear, the bone attack Regoa carried with him had already struck its body first. Regoa had originally aimed for the orc's vital point, but its reaction was not slow. At the last second, it actually managed to avoid a fatal hit. Feeling the sharp pain, the orc viciously pulled the burn out of its chest. In the next second, it roared and charged straight at Regoa, clearly intending to tear him apart. Regoa's gaze sharpened slightly. Then he spoke in a low voice. "Bone control." In the next moment, undead power surged toward the giant orc. In the blink of an eye, the bones inside the orc's own body suddenly went out of control and pierced through it from within. Seeing this, the team leader was completely shocked. Regoa could actually control the bones inside the orc's body and make it kill itself. Regoa, however, only said calmly, "It's nothing special. Next, we continue the hunt." Soon, the orc that had already died was awakened again by necromantic summoning. In Regoa's memory, there was also an orc fortress in this area, and that was his true target. After killing the ambushing orc and turning it into a servant, Regoa told everyone that their next destination would be the orc fortress. Hearing this, the others were both excited and worried. Can we really clear out an orc fortress that smoothly? After that, the group continued heading toward the fortress. Every orc they encountered along the way was dealt with easily by Regoa. Before they knew it, evening had arrived. Regoa figured they could only stop here and rest for the night. But when he turned around, he found that the team had already set up the tents. Regoa could not help smiling faintly. What a laid-back group. Late at night, Regoa began seriously thinking about his current level. He had now reached level 16, which was enough for him to examine part of the necromancer magic available to him. Then he sent his consciousness into the knowledge space inside the ring. Because of the system's restrictions, many high-level wizard spells were still unavailable to him. What he could access now were mostly basic spells he would not have even cared about in his previous life. But after thinking it over, those spells he once looked down on were actually perfect for his current stage. After all, when Regoa became a necromancer in his previous life, he had already reached 7-star rank, so he had never seriously studied these low-level necromancy spells. As Regoa studied deeper and deeper, a system notification soon rang out. "You have learned a new skill." The next morning, the team members woke up in a daze. But the first thing they saw was a group of massive orcs, their bodies wrapped in thick bone armor. The team leader jolted in fright and shouted, "What the hell are those things?" Regoa smiled. "These are the orcs I just modified. I call them armored orcs." This was the new skill he had just obtained. It allowed him to transform bones into armor and use them to strengthen defense. Since everyone is awake, it's time to head to the orc fortress. A short while later, the group finally saw the orc fortress. The fortress was even larger than Regoa had expected. Right then, an orc on the watchtower immediately rang the alarm bell and shouted, "Enemies." In the next moment, countless orcs rushed out of the fortress. Regoa raised his brow slightly. He had not expected these orcs to be so alert. Then he immediately activated bone control. The bone weapons he had prepared in advance were instantly pulled forward by undead power and shot out. The orc charging at the very front was pierced through and killed on the spot. Regoa said in a low voice, "I really hate noisy things like you." As he spoke, the orc chief also walked out of the fortress and let out a furious roar toward the sky. The orcs in the fortress instantly pulled out bows and arrows, all taking aim at once. Seeing this, the team leader immediately stepped forward and activated his class defense skill. He had not expected these orcs to actually know how to fight in formation. The girl quickly raised her sword crossbow, and dozens of arrows poured out in an instant. Her target was the group of orcs charging straight toward them. Regoa stood in place and smiled faintly, as expected of the duo that would one day be known as the Twin Shadow Archers. But he did not have much time to waste. Regoa immediately ordered all his servants to charge at the enemy. In an instant, the orcs and undead servants clashed in a chaotic battle, and what Regoa truly needed to do was kill the orc chief himself. Sensing Regoa walking toward him step by step, the orc chief locked its eyes on him. In the next second, the orc chief raised its giant axe and brought it down viciously toward Regoa. Facing the incoming attack, Regoa's expression did not change at all. He simply spoke softly. Bone control. Countless bones, wrapped in undead power, instantly swept toward the orc chief. Dense bone spikes struck the orc chief all over its body, forcing out a painful growl. The orc chief gritted its teeth and raised its hand, preparing to pull out all the bones embedded in its body. Regoa knew very clearly that he had to kill the orc chief in one burst. Otherwise, once it entered berserk mode, it would become far more troublesome. The orc chief still wanted to struggle, but the bones inside its body had already been completely twisted apart by Regoa. In the end, it could only collapse backward helplessly. The fight looked easy, but Regoa's body was already close to its limit. In that short span of time, more than half of his mana had been consumed. Regoa immediately activated Life Drain. After only a short moment, most of his condition had recovered. Right then, the orcs behind him let out whimpering roars. Seeing their chief killed, the remaining orcs instantly scattered and fled. But in Regoa's eyes, they were all walking attribute points. There was no way he would let them escape. Before long, every fleeing orc was completely wiped out. The people beside him could hardly believe it. They had not expected Regoa to kill the orc chief so quickly, nor had they expected so many crystals to be scattered across the ground. However, what Regoa truly cared about was not the crystals, but the giant axe the orc chief had used. This blood axe was the real treasure. Based on its attributes, the more monsters it killed, the stronger the axe would become. After that, Regoa handed all the dropped items to the team to handle, because he still had something far more important to do. Clearing out the orcs had only been the appetizer. His real target was actually the tree inside the fortress. Regoa looked at the withered tree and said calmly, "Stop hiding. Come out." But the withered tree gave no response. Regoa gave a faint laugh. "Still pretending in front of me? If you don't come out, I'll destroy this tree." As soon as he said that, the lifeless withered tree suddenly erupted with an intense aura. A dark shadow appeared and asked in a low voice, "Who are you?" It turned out that Regoa had come to the orc fortress for one true purpose: to meet the mysterious person hidden inside this tree. Regoa looked at him and directly revealed his true identity, the former savior hero, Lee Baron. The shadow asked quietly, "How do you know my name?" Regoa replied calmly, "I don't just know your name, I remember your deeds as well." In the central city, a massive monument still stands today. Its inscription records the heroes who gave their lives for the nation. And you were one of the first to stand on the front lines, fighting to protect humanity when the disaster first descended. Hearing this, a trace of relief finally appeared in the shadow's eyes. "I never thought there would still be someone who remembered me." "However," Regoa said calmly, "don't misunderstand. There is no trace of you left on that monument anymore." The shadow's tone instantly turned solemn. "What do you mean by that?" Regoa slowly said, "Neluhito. You haven't forgotten that name, have you?" Lee Baron's thoughts were instantly dragged back 35 years. Back then, facing a desperate situation he could barely withstand, he had requested reinforcements more than once. But the answer he received was always the same: no one else would be sent to support him. In that moment, Lee Baron fell silent. He finally realized he had been abandoned as bait. They clearly knew the South Gate was extremely dangerous, yet they still deceived him and told him it was safe. From the pager came a voice filled with mockery. "Thanks to you, we were able to escape through the North Gate so smoothly." Rage surged through Lee Baron's chest as he gritted his teeth and said, "You knew very well that I would never abandon the civilians left at the South Gate." But the reply from the pager remained cold. "Only those who survive are qualified to be called heroes." Looking at the terrified civilians around him, Lee Baron finally made an astonishing decision. "Take the civilians and retreat. I'll hold this place alone." Hearing this, his teammates could hardly believe it. But Lee Baron shouted again and again, "That's an order," just as the shadow sank completely into his memories. Regoa's voice pulled him back to reality. "Neluhito, the man who caused your death, became the hero of that battle, and every record of you was completely erased by him. Reality really is ironic. You risked your life to protect everything only for someone else to steal even your honor." The shadow spoke with suppressed anger. "Why did you come looking for me?" Regoa gave a faint smile. "I can help you get revenge. I can make Neluhito pay the price. In exchange, you will sign an undead contract with me and become one of my immortal servants. To bring you in, I even prepared the most suitable vessel for you." As he said that, Regoa placed the dragonkin body on the ground. Seeing this, the shadow froze in place and did not respond for a long time. Ever since he had become this form, he had never dared to hope that revenge would still be possible. After a long silence, he finally said in a low voice, "I can sign a contract with you, and I can obey your orders unconditionally. But I have one bottom line that must never be crossed. I will not harm any innocent person." Hearing this, a trace of surprise flashed through Regoa's eyes. He had not expected that even after all this time, Lee Baron's original resolve had never changed. Regoa nodded. "I accept your condition. I will never misuse your power to harm innocent civilians." The shadow slowly said, "Since the conditions are settled, turn me into your servant." In the next moment, Regoa officially formed a contract with the shadow's soul. A system notification rang out. Authority over mortal spirit obtained. In his previous life, Regoa had also formed a contract with the shadow and trained him into an outstanding skeleton knight. Since then, Regoa had occasionally wondered what would have happened if he had given him a top-tier body from the very beginning. Just how powerful could he have become? After obtaining his new body, the shadow instinctively lowered his head and examined himself. His initial attributes were actually over 100, and he even possessed multiple talent effects and several skills. The moment Regoa saw the status panel, surprise appeared in his eyes. He had not expected using a soul instead of an ancient dragon heart as the core to bring such a huge result. Most importantly, The traits the Shadow had in his previous life had also been fully inherited. As a magic warrior, he could freely use both martial and magical power. Regoa asked, "Do you like this body? Any abnormal reactions?" The Shadow moved his body a little. "Although it still can't compare to my previous self. At least this body has room to grow." Regoa nodded. "Since everything is done, it's time for us to leave. From now on, your name will be Kashiwagi." But Kashiwagi suddenly shouted, "Are you seriously expecting a warrior to follow you around like this?" After saying that, he looked toward a nearby tent. Then he tore off a piece of cloth from it. "Even if I've become your servant, I'm still not used to walking around bare like this. Now we can officially set off." Regoa was speechless. He had already become a dragonkin, yet he still cared about details like that. The scene shifted, and Regoa returned to the alchemist Sinia's laboratory. Sinia's face was full of shock. The dragonkin corpse, some not long ago, had actually started moving. "This is the greatest alchemy I've ever seen. I want to work with you." Regoa only replied calmly, "I just got lucky and found a suitable soul." Kashiwagi asked in a low voice, "Regoa, can I beat this guy up?" Sinia was still touching his body all over with fascination. Regoa sighed helplessly. "He's just a weak researcher. Let him go." Right then, someone walked over from the side. "Mr. Regoa, we plan to return to Central City first and sell the crystals. We hope we'll have another chance to work together next time." After the team left, Regoa summoned undead power once again. In the next moment, the corpse of the orc chief he had killed earlier appeared. An orc chief was an extremely rare material. Looking at the corpse in front of him, Regoa began thinking about what he should make with it. After thinking for a moment, Regoa activated flesh separation. The massive orc chief soon became nothing but a complete skeleton. Then Regoa asked Sinia for the potion they had prepared in advance, and dripped it onto the bones. The potion's purpose was to increase bone strength, and the effect was exactly what Regoa had expected. In the end, the former orc chief was turned into a skeleton guard, and its star rank reached 2-star. Regoa was at his most vulnerable whenever he used Life Drain. Now, with a skeleton guard protecting him, he could cast the skill much more safely. Sinia could not help asking, "Why do you insist on using a skeleton as your guard?" Regoa replied calmly, "Because skeleton guards don't rot easily, and bones are easier for me to enhance. More importantly, ordinary servants all have time limits, while a skeleton guard can protect me 24 hours a day. Sinia, help me keep an eye on this for now. I have something important to do first. I'm going to the Pantheon to obtain a holy spell. That way, I can deepen my connection with the skeleton." Sinia froze on the spot, almost wondering if he had heard wrong. "You're a necromancer, and you're going to learn holy magic? And you want to grant holy magic to a skeleton? That's so ridiculous. I can barely imagine it." Regoa said with a completely serious expression, "Although my class is necromancer, deep down, I'm actually a devout priest." Sinia fell completely silent. Had the world gone insane? Since when did dark-type wizards believe in holy magic? Regoa changed the subject. "Let's stop worrying about my faith for now. Have you applied for a patent for your regeneration potion?" Sinia snapped back to his senses and said, "I submitted the application 2 days ago. The approval should be completed soon. But there's one problem. The exhibition won't be held until next year. Only at an exhibition like that can the regeneration potion get proper promotion." Regoa said calmly, "As for promotion, I already have a few ideas." Then he asked Sinia for several bottles of the regeneration potion. "When I get the chance, I'll help promote it as well. If this promotion goes well, neither of us will have to worry about money in the future." Looking at Regoa, who had already started planning ahead, Sinia could not help wondering if this guy was really a priest who believed in holy magic. The scene shifted. The Pantheon. This was a miracle that had suddenly appeared in the world after the disaster descended. Large numbers of hunters gathered here to set up stalls and trade, while others used the opportunity to search for different kinds of holy magic. After all, many hunters brought relics back from dungeons. Regoa made a quick round through the area, but he did not find any relics carrying a holy aura. So he headed straight toward the upper level of the Pantheon. After leveling up, the system had already notified him that he could obtain a new skill. But the real question was, did he really have to climb all 108 steps? For a mage-type class like Regoa, stairs this high were basically torture. Regoa could not help asking, "Kronos, I've been climbing for so long. How much farther?" Kronos replied calmly, "Don't rush. From the look of it, you're only halfway there." Regoa looked completely helpless, but he could only keep climbing. After spending this much effort, he could only hope the magic he wanted was actually waiting at the top. A short while later, Regoa finally reached the peak of the Pantheon. Countless constellations were enshrined across the dome, as if they were looking down on every challenger who made it this far. A system notification appeared. The wealthy constellation has shown disgust toward you. Notification: death has been concealed. Regoa narrowed his eyes slightly. That constellation looked suspicious. Immediately after, another notification appeared. The king of Abydos is displeased with you. Kronos could not help laughing. Didn't expect so many constellations to look down on you the moment you arrived. Then, Kronos spoke. My constellation has appeared in the Pantheon too. Let me bestow my skills upon you. Since Kronos' constellation had only recently been born, he had to scam through the Pantheon for a while before finally finding his own place. After that, Kronos selected his constellation and activated the power of bestowal. System notification: the constellation of the Lord of the Gods has now been registered in the Pantheon's roster. At the same time, another system notification followed. You have obtained Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance. Evil Blessing strengthens negative abilities and increases attribute values. Blade of Vengeance gains 1 stack each time you are hit by an enemy. The more stacks accumulated, the higher the retaliation damage when activated. Kronos said proudly, "These are my trump card skills." Regoa gave a faint laugh. "Old man, the skills you gave me are barely acceptable." Right then, another system notification appeared. The constellation standing proudly above the heavens lacks the proper holy aura. Please attract more constellation believers to increase this constellation status within the Pantheon. Seeing this notification, Regoa became excited instead. After all, in his previous life, he had been a 9-star powerhouse. Attracting believers would not be difficult for him. After that, Regoa left the Pantheon. But the moment he stepped out, a voice came from behind him. "Why did you come out of the temple? Regoa? It's been a long time." Regoa turned back in confusion. "Who are you? Do we know each other?" Hearing this, the man froze for a moment. Then his expression turned ugly. "I'm Satek. You actually forgot me?" Regoa finally seemed to remember. "Oh, right. You're that little thug who used to extort people. I remember when I was working at the cafe, you tried to extort one of my coworkers. Then, I beat you up pretty badly. I think I even broke your nose that time. Looks like it healed pretty fast." Satek stared at Regoa, his eyes burning with anger. But in the next moment, he forced himself to calm down. "We're not from the same world anymore. See this badge? I've joined the Aragiri Guild, and you're just a bottom-feeding worm. I don't need to see you as an opponent anymore." Regoa looked at him calmly. "But from what I can see, you haven't changed at all. You're still the same weak little thug." Satek's face darkened. "Last time you only knocked me out because you caught me off guard. You think you can do that again?" Before he even finished speaking, he swung his fist viciously toward Regoa. But at that exact moment, a hand suddenly grabbed Satek's wrist. The person who stepped in was Satek's team leader, Jomon. He warned coldly, "Don't cause trouble in the city." Satek gritted his teeth. "Captain, this bastard insulted me. He even dared to look down on the Aragiri Guild." Jomin looked at Regoa. "Since you know we're from the Aragiri Guild and still dare to act like this, then let's settle it with an official match." Satek froze. "Captain, are you serious? You want this guy to fight me? I saw him come out of the temple just now. He should be a complete beginner who only recently became a hunter." Regoa said softly, "Since you want a match, I'll accept. Or what? Are you still traumatized from the beating I gave you last time and too scared to fight me?" Satek laughed in anger. "You're asking to die. I'll make you pay for this." Soon, everyone arrived at the Aragiri Guild's match arena. Regoa said calmly, "I'm a priest, after all. So your real opponent won't be me. It will be my contracted servant. You'll fight him." Satek sneered. "For a priest, having a summon is impressive, sure. But why is it some low-grade looking beast? Don't worry. Inside the match formation, your life won't be in danger, but I'll make you regret ever becoming my enemy." Before the fight even officially began, Satek was already mocking Regoa non-stop, his voice dripping with contempt, as if he could beat him with one hand. Facing the barking of someone this weak, Regoa had no interest in responding at all. Kashiwagi slowly stepped forward and said in a low voice, "I didn't expect to run into people from the Aragiri Guild this soon. Since this is my first fight after gaining a body, I'll use you to get used to it. Regoa, this opponent is from an enemy guild. I don't have to hold back, do I?" Regoa said calmly, "I'd love to let you vent all that anger, but try not to end it too quickly. There's something I want to test." Kashiwagi sounded helpless. "Regoa, you're making this difficult. Asking a human to go easy on a mosquito is already hard enough." Watching Satek charge in blindly, Kashiwagi could only say, "Fine, I'll try to be gentle." Facing Satek's attack, Kashiwagi simply leaped lightly, then raised his fist and struck toward him. But because he still was not used to his new body, Satek actually managed to dodge the punch by sidestepping. Satek seized the chance, crouched down quickly, and thrust his spear toward Kashiwagi's side and lower abdomen from a tricky angle. Seeing this, the team leader smiled and said, "His footwork is faster than during training." But in the very next moment, The spear Satak had thrust out was caught in Kashiwagi's hand. Kashiwagi said coldly, "Did you really think an attack that slow would work? The moment you attacked from the side, you also left yourself completely undefended." Satak tried to pull back his spear and retreat, but no matter how hard he pulled, the spear would not move. "You should be grateful this is only a training match. If this were a real fight, you'd already be dead." After saying that, Kashiwagi raised his fist, ready to smash down hard. But at that exact moment, he suddenly remembered that Rigoa had told him to hold back. So the fist that was about to strike turned into a knife hand blow at the last second, hitting Satak in the chest with only 30% of his strength. Even though that was less than half his power, it was still enough to make Satak feel a bone-deep pain. Rigoa then stepped forward and said helplessly, "I told you to hold back, but you still need to restrain your strength even more. The outcome is obvious now. You should be convinced, right?" Satak gritted his teeth and forced himself back up. "Who said the match is over? I can still stand. I haven't admitted defeat." Kashiwagi looked at Rigoa. "Since he hasn't surrendered, this fight isn't over yet." Right then, Satak raised his spear again and charged forward at high speed. But that so-called speed was still laughably slow in Kashiwagi's eyes. Kashiwagi simply stomped hard and shattered the ground beneath him. In that instant, Satak's body completely lost its balance. Kashiwagi said coldly, "You're still just a beginner, with no real combat experience. Your movements are far too simple." Looking at Satak, who had lost his balance, Kashiwagi merely kicked lightly toward his knee. In the next second, Satak's knee snapped instantly, and Kashiwagi had used less than 10% of his strength this time. Then, he raised his knife hand again. This time, it really ends. Kashiwagi's strike was not even that fast, but Satak was already so terrified that he could not speak. In the end, he could only close his eyes and accept his fate. But Kashiwagi stopped the attack at the very last moment. The team leader's expression turned extremely ugly. He clearly had not expected Satak to lose this completely. At the same time, the match system announced, "Match over." The team leader immediately stepped forward to check the injury. "Your leg is completely shattered. I'll go find a priest right now." Rigoa walked over at that moment. "Aren't I a priest?" The team leader frowned. "Of course I know you're a priest, but his bones are completely crushed. A one-star priest can't possibly heal this, unless you have another way?" Rigoa smiled faintly. "Of course. I happen to carry regeneration potions with me." The team leader froze. "I've never heard of a regeneration potion. Even if something like that exists, it should cost at least several million a bottle." Rigoa replied calmly, "Of course you haven't heard of it. The regeneration potion hasn't officially launched yet. Right now, I'm kindly treating him for you. If we delay treatment, that leg might keep him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life." After saying that, Rigoa poured out the potion, a faint victorious smile appearing on his face. He really had not expected to find such a perfect promotional opportunity. The moment the potion touched the wound, Satak's shattered knee began recovering at a visible speed. The team leader could hardly believe it. In just a short while, even the bones had fully healed. A potion like this was practically the same as having a second life. The team leader immediately asked, "Where exactly did you get this potion?" Hearing that, a slight smile curled at the corner of Rigoa's lips. He knew this guy was already tempted. "You're a squad captain from the Aragiri Guild. Your strength should be around 3-star, right? If you really want to know where this potion came from, then fight my summon." The captain frowned. "You already won the last match, and that still isn't enough for you. Fine, I'll accept. But no matter how this turns out, you have to tell me where the potion came from." Rigoa gave a faint smile. "Of course. Besides, that last fight ended too quickly. I didn't even get the chance to fully show what my side can really do." In the next moment, Kashiwagi loosened his body and took up his battle stance once more. The instant the match began, the squad captain rushed in at explosive speed. The sword in his hand turned into a flash of steel as he struck at Kashiwagi without mercy. But the moment they clashed, the captain was slightly shocked inside. His swordsmanship had always been famous for its speed, yet the dragonkin in front of him could not only see through every strike, but also block each attack with precision. Still, under the captain's relentless pressure, Kashiwagi's defense gradually started getting pushed back. The moment he sensed the shift in tempo, Kashiwagi immediately prepared to counterattack. He stomped the ground as well, trying to throw the captain off balance. But at that exact moment, the captain leaped upward and cleanly avoided it. Meanwhile, Rigoa kept his eyes locked on the battle, studying every movement. Everything was unfolding exactly as he had expected. For Kashiwagi, the dragonkin body was still too heavy. Against an agility-type opponent, it was hard for him to adapt perfectly. Even so, with his wealth of combat experience, Kashiwagi could still read the captain's attack patterns clearly. And little by little, Kashiwagi himself started getting excited. This was the perfect chance to adapt to his new dragonkin body through real combat. Regoa spoke softly. Kashiwagi, I'm satisfied with your performance so far. But I'm your summoner. I'm not going to stand here forever and watch you stay on the losing end. In the next second, evil blessing surged over Kashiwagi's body, sharply boosting his senses, speed, and strength all at once. The moment evil blessing activated, Kashiwagi's stats nearly shot up by 70% in an instant, while the squad captain, just by being touched by a trace of its aura, was suppressed with a 30% stat reduction. Even Regoa was caught off guard by how ridiculous the effect was, as expected of the power that once belonged to the Lord of the Gods. Even at a beginner level, the skill was already this terrifying. If this skill ever reached the higher tiers, just imagining its full power was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Kronos immediately became smug. Well, brat? Feeling the greatness of my power now? Go on, worship me properly. Regoa gave a calm smile. I'll save the worship for later. Let me finish this fight first. From here on out, this is where the fun really starts. Then Regoa activated Blade of Vengeance. Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance stacked on Kashiwagi at the same time. Regoa smiled and said, fight however you want. Your body is no longer human, so why are you still clinging to the way humans fight? Seeing this, the squad captain still planned to win with speed. His sword strikes rained down on Kashiwagi, while system notifications kept ringing out. Damage has been stacked. Even though his own stats have been reduced quite a bit, he was still a 3-star member of the guild. Dealing with a 1-star dragonkin should have been more than enough. Yet, against the captain's relentless offense, Kashiwagi only kept defending at first. Soon, Kashiwagi realized something clearly. He was no longer human. Since this body would not die easily no matter how badly it was injured, there was no need to keep fighting with a human mindset. What he needed to do was seize the right chance, abandon defense, force his way in, and drag the enemy into close combat. After all, his greatest advantages now were his powerful body and terrifying strength. The squad captain never expected Kashiwagi to suddenly drop his defense and attack him head-on. Although his sword had struck the dragonkin countless times, Kashiwagi's speed and strength seemed completely unaffected. In the blink of an eye, Kashiwagi closed the distance and blasted him away with one punch. That single hit alone dropped the captain's HP by 52%. The captain was shaken. Was this thing really only a 1-star summon? He had to change his strategy immediately. He could not let the dragonkin stick to him in close combat again. Suddenly, the squad captain seemed to figure something out. He focused all his strength into his ankles, exploded with terrifying speed, and charged straight toward Regoa. Since attacking the dragonkin was useless, then all he had to do was eliminate the summoner. As long as he defeated this 1-star priest, the match would end instantly. The captain gritted his teeth. Don't blame me. I wanted to crush your summon first, but now I'll have to take you down instead. But just as the sword was about to hit Regoa, Regoa showed no intention of dodging at all. He only said calmly, "You really are an idiot. Did you think I wouldn't expect such an obvious weakness?" Then Regoa snapped his fingers. Blade of Vengeance. Activate. In the next instant, every attack that had landed on Kashiwagi transformed into blades of retaliation and shot straight back at the squad captain. At the same time, a system notification rang out. Jomon's HP has reached 0. Shortly after the match ended, inside the Aragiri Guild building, you're saying they can mass-produce a product comparable to high-grade potions called the Regeneration Potion. The person speaking was none other than the guild's second-in-command. Jomon immediately answered, "That's right, Vice Guildmaster. I personally witnessed the effect of the Regeneration Potion. Even I have never heard of a method for developing a potion like that." The Vice Guildmaster frowned. "Are you sure you weren't tricked?" Jomon said in a low voice. "I saw it with my own eyes. The moment the potion was applied, even shattered bones began recovering instantly." The Vice Guildmaster said coldly, "Forget the potion for a moment. You are a 3-star hunter of our guild. A 3-star hunter lost to a 1-star summon. Don't you think you've disgraced the guild? And I heard that after losing the match you only mentioned the Aragiri Guild's name and left. You protected your own reputation, but made the guild lose face in your place. Starting today, you are demoted to an ordinary member." After Jomon left, the Vice Guildmaster turned to his secretary. "Investigate the regeneration potion for me. I want to know its true source. Also, a 1-star priest should never be able to defeat a 3-star swordsman, unless this priest has obtained some kind of divine-grade summoning skill." The Vice Guildmaster simply could not understand how a priest could possess such a powerful summoning ability. While you're at it, investigate this man's detailed background as well. Meanwhile, Regoa was waiting for news of the regeneration potion to reach the higher-ups of the Aragiri Guild. Right then, Kashiwagi suddenly spoke. There's something I'm curious about. Why did you make me study spear-type skill books right after the fight ended? Rigoa said calmly. There's nothing strange about that. You're an all-around warrior, so I think your development should be more complete. Kashiwagi seemed to understand, so that's why. But I still prefer attacking with my fists. Rigoa continued. If you can master weapons, your attack style won't be so one-dimensional. Hearing this, Kashiwagi laughed loudly. Fists against flesh. That's how a real man should fight. Seeing this, Rigoa simply used a little necromancy. Kashiwagi was instantly shocked. Why is my fist suddenly moving on its own? Rigoa, you shameless bastard. You're actually controlling me just to make me study. Rigoa said calmly. Since we're going to train in spear techniques, then as your master I should fully master them too. After taking the skill book, Rigoa's expression did not change at all. This was only the most basic spear technique. As long as someone understood its contents, even a child could master it. More importantly, as a regressor, Rigoa only needed an instant to learn everything written inside the book. In the next moment, the skill book turned into knowledge and poured directly into his mind. Kashiwagi grinned. Since you've learned spear techniques now, then let's have a proper training session, my dear summoner. As he spoke, Kashiwagi's attack had already landed where Rigoa had just been standing. Rigoa instinctively retreated and could not help saying, that attack came way too suddenly. Kashiwagi said confidently, aren't you the one who wanted to test my spear technique? Why are you dodging so fast? Rigoa complained helplessly, you're definitely holding a grudge because I beat you earlier. Kashiwagi immediately put on a smug look. Me? How could I possibly be that kind of person? Then Kashiwagi's expression suddenly turned serious. If this were real combat, you'd have to attack with killing intent. Did I not tell you that? I was also skilled with the spear in the past. Don't forget, I'm an all-around warrior. Now let me show you what my attacks really look like. As soon as he said that, Kashiwagi charged straight at Rigoa. Rigoa did not panic at all. He had already fully understood the basics of spear techniques. This time he was definitely going to teach Kashiwagi a lesson. But in the next instant, Kashiwagi's spear shot straight toward Rigoa's chest. Rigoa immediately raised his spear to block, secretly pleased. As long as he blocked this strike, it would be his turn to counterattack. But almost the moment he blocked the attack, Kashiwagi's spear suddenly shifted upward. Rigoa's pupils shrank, his face filled with disbelief. Had this guy really mastered spear techniques long ago? Kashiwagi said coldly, did you think blocking one attack meant you could relax? Until the fight is decided, you can't let your guard down for even a second. Rigoa frowned. I clearly blocked the attack, so why did I still get hit? Kashiwagi explained, because the moment you blocked it, your eyes had already shifted to me, and you were already preparing to counterattack. You ignored my second strike. Hearing this, Rigoa still refused to accept it. That's only because your stats are higher than mine. That's why I lost. Kashiwagi looked at his stubborn expression and said calmly, then I'll suppress my stats to the same level as yours. Rigoa immediately said, if we're at the same level, then I definitely won't get hit by your second strike again. Facing Kashiwagi's next attack, Rigoa quickly stepped forward to defend, thinking over and over that as long as he blocked the second strike, he could counterattack. But in the next moment, his vision went black. When Rigoa woke up again, he was already lying on the ground. Kashiwagi looked down at him and said, your head was full of thoughts about blocking my second strike. As a result, you failed to even defend against the first one. Rigoa knew very well that after being reborn, he had become far too relaxed. In that case, today was the perfect chance to break that mindset from deep within. Seeing the fighting spirit reignite in Rigoa's eyes, Kashiwagi grinned. Good, then I'll stay with you until the end. The scene shifted to a barbecue restaurant, where the squad captain could not help asking, Rigoa, what happened to you? Rigoa had no desire to speak. For 3 whole hours, he had been beaten up by Kashiwagi. That guy had definitely done it on purpose. And when Kashiwagi was beating him, he had clearly been enjoying it. Resting inside Rigoa's body, Kashiwagi said calmly, there aren't many chances to beat you up this reasonably. Rigoa could not be bothered to argue with him and instead asked, why did you suddenly ask me to meet? The squad captain said, one of our members saw a post on the Hunter website. It's gone viral across the entire network. The Forgotten Temple is about to open to all hunters. Hearing that, Rigoa was slightly surprised as well. That place still had not been cleared. The ownership of the Forgotten Temple dungeon was currently in the hands of the Frost Guild, but even after a full year of raiding it, they still had not managed to clear it. The squad captain continued. Mr. Rigoa, you should know that dungeons are divided into 2 types, static gates and dynamic gates. Once the mana density of a dynamic gate exceeds 100%, the monsters inside will invade the human world. Static gates, on the other hand, spawn monsters on a fixed cycle. right? Regoa nodded. You're exactly right. Because the Frost Guild failed to subjugate it properly, the Forgotten Temple's mana density is about to break past 100%. That's why the Frost Guild is being forced to open the temple this time. Regoa suddenly remembered something. In his previous life, the Phoenix Guild had obtained a piece of dragon-scale armor, and that equipment had come from the Forgotten Temple. Since the Forgotten Temple had not been cleared yet, he still had a chance to take that god-tier armor first. According to rumors, that armor possessed the power of a dragon. The squad captain looked at Regoa, completely unable to understand why his eyes had suddenly turned so cunning. Regoa said directly, "Gather the team for me. Tomorrow, we head to the Forgotten Temple." The next day, the Forgotten Temple dungeon's mana density had already reached 93%. Around the area, the logistics teams of the major guilds that had received the news were already in position. One team member could not help saying, "Captain, it looks like this is going to be a brutal competition. So many guilds have shown up, and we only brought 5 days of rations. Are we really going to be okay?" The captain nodded. "Of course. We'll be operating inside the dungeon the whole time, so this should be over quickly." Right then, one of the team members suddenly looked excited. "That's Ashaka, the next Sword Saint candidate." Regoa looked over when he heard the name. Ashaka was the person who had obtained the dragon-scale armor in his previous life. She was known as the most talented legend in the Phoenix Guild's history, but unfortunately, she died unexpectedly before she could truly grow. At the same time, the squad captain shouted again, "Look to the east. That's Iron Fist. He's a famous man throughout this entire region." Regoa glanced to the side. One dungeon had actually gathered famous hunters from all across the region. He said calmly, "Stop spacing out. Get ready to enter with me. This time, we're going to be the first to clear this dungeon." Not long after, the group entered the Forgotten Temple. The temple was extremely dangerous inside, so Regoa immediately summoned Kashiwagi to protect him. Seeing this, the girl could not help whispering, "All his skills are undead type. Do you think he'll turn us into servants one day too?" Regoa suddenly appeared behind them. "Relax. I'm not the kind of person who turns people into servants for no reason. Besides, you're all too weak. You're really not suitable servant material. And you're my partners, so I'm not bored enough to attack my own allies." As he spoke, the entire temple suddenly began shaking violently. This was the moving dungeon from the rumors. Although its official level was only 2-star, it moved randomly every day, making its actual difficulty closer to 3-star. Just like in his previous life, the dungeon would shift unpredictably, and even the monsters inside would randomly change along with it. Regoa looked at Kashiwagi. "You go scout ahead first." Then he immediately activated Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance. A short while later, the group officially entered deeper into the temple. But Kashiwagi suddenly stopped walking. A white-robed sorcerer slowly stepped out, its body wrapped in a thick aura of death. Based on the information they had gathered beforehand, this was a fallen wizard. Before the group could even come up with a strategy, the fallen wizard launched an attack straight at them. Seeing this, Kashiwagi immediately stepped forward and faced it head-on. But the fallen wizard had been a mage-type class while alive, so in close combat, it was completely crushed by Kashiwagi. He snapped its fingers in an instant. Then he slammed the fallen wizard hard into the ground. In just moments, he easily smashed its head apart. The squad captain could hardly believe what he had just seen. A fallen wizard had been completely overpowered, just like that. Kashiwagi, however, looked bored. "This fallen wizard is way too weak. It's not even interesting." Regoa said calmly, "Dragonkin are naturally strong, so overpowering it this easily is normal. But you crushed its head, which means I can't control it with necromancy anymore." Kashiwagi, however, did not seem concerned. "That's nothing to worry about. Look around. Aren't there still plenty of fallen wizards here?" Regoa said calmly. "This time, let me try dealing with them." Immediately after, he activated bone control. In the blink of an eye, countless bones shot toward the fallen wizards, like hidden weapons. Every strike landed with perfect precision, hitting the wizards' bodies without missing by even an inch. Bones, wrapped in undead aura, quickly drilled into the fallen wizards' bodies. Mage-type monsters already had extremely low resistance to elemental skills. As long as Regoa disguised holy magic as necrotic energy and injected it into their bodies, he could greatly slow their movements. Kashiwagi, who was charging at the front, was slightly surprised. The wizard's speed seemed to have suddenly dropped. In less than a minute, several fallen wizards were completely defeated. Kashiwagi turned back and said, "I was careful this time. I deliberately avoided attacking their heads." At the same time, the wizards were defeated. A system notification rang out in Regoa's mind. System notification, new skill obtained, Dark Sage. New skill obtained, Dark Dominion. mana consumption for undead summons reduced by 20%. In other words, Regoa could now fight for much longer. In the next moment, the defeated fallen wizards were instantly awakened and completely transformed into undead servants. The moment the transformation finished, the servants instinctively searched for enemies and charged back into battle. At the same time, the team members also entered combat mode. Kashiwagi did not fall behind either, clashing once again with the surrounding fallen wizards. But the situation made Regoa frown slightly. Why were these wizards pouring out endlessly? Just as he was thinking, the ground began shaking violently again. One of the team members shouted, "Regoa, we need to leave this room fast. The dungeon structure is about to change again." But Regoa did not immediately give the order to retreat. Instead, he suddenly remembered something. In his previous life, Ashoka had once accepted an interview from the media. The reporter asked, "You were the first player to successfully clear the Forgotten Temple. Everyone is curious, Miss Ashoka. How did you open the final gate?" Ashoka answered, "Ordinary gates open automatically once the boss is defeated. But the final boss gate of the temple requires a special method to open. No matter how the temple changes, there are only 3 types of rooms. By defeating 3 types of monsters in a cycle, you can obtain 3 different badges. Once you collect 49 badges and place them in the designated spots, you can enter the boss area immediately." Soon, Regoa's group cleared out the surrounding fallen wizards and entered the next room. At that moment, a blood-red demon eye slowly appeared in the air. The squad captain immediately noticed something strange. That demon eye looks exactly like the pattern on the surrounding pillars. The demon eye, which had only been an illusion at first, solidified into a real form almost instantly. A strange light kept flickering inside its eye. Then, beams of light shot out like arrows, and a thunderous tearing sound echoed through the entire space. Regoa seemed to have been prepared for this. He merely opened his hands slightly, and 5 bone projectiles he had prepared in advance appeared in front of him. The projectiles were covered in undead power and instantly formed a bone shield in front of Regoa. The powerful beams slammed into the shield again and again, but no matter how fierce the attacks were, the bones showed no sign of cracking. Regoa neutralized the entire assault almost effortlessly. These bones were not ordinary materials. Regoa had carved undead runes into them in advance, so their toughness had already reached a terrifying level. But just as everyone started to lower their guard, the demon eye launched another attack almost instantly. The gap between the 2 attacks was not even 0.2 seconds. Just as the attack was about to hit Regoa, Kashiwagi appeared in front of him in an instant. "Even if I didn't step in, you probably could have dodged it. But I'm your guard, so just stay safely behind me." As he spoke, the attack slammed into Kashiwagi again. The huge impact completely swallowed his body, but he quickly realized the force was weaker than he had expected. When the dust cleared, Kashiwagi was completely unharmed. Regoa's expression remained calm. He had spent a great deal of effort creating this dragonkin body. There was no way a monster from a mere 2-star dungeon could break through its defense. Kashiwagi nodded. "You were right. After taking that hit, I didn't feel any pain at all. Looks like I don't need to be careful against the demon eye. I can just smash it apart with my body." In the next second, Kashiwagi swung his fist and struck the demon eye head-on. The demon eye's attacks might be strong against ordinary creatures, but they're useless against me. "Do you need to turn it into a servant?" Regoa shook his head. "What I need is the item on it. Once we get that item, we can enter the final stage." A short while later, they found the second type of monster. To open the next gate, they needed a smiling face item, and that item came from the masked monster in front of them. Kashiwagi looked at the monster and could not help saying with disgust, "That thing is seriously ugly." But the moment he finished speaking, the masked monster suddenly let out a piercing roar. When the terrifying sound stopped, a black-red curse immediately surged toward Kashiwagi. A system notification rang out. Mask Mimic has reduced Kashiwagi's attributes. Regoa sensed Kashiwagi's stats dropping and asked, "Need me to handle it for you?" Kashiwagi replied calmly, "The Mask Mimic's curse is also dark type, and necromancy is the highest form within the dark system. I can deal with this using my own power." In the next moment, a system notification rang out. "Curse has been broken." Seeing this, Regoa was slightly surprised. Necromancy was indeed the highest level dark power, but he had not expected Kashiwagi to break the curse directly with his own undead power. Still, Regoa activated Evil Blessing. "I'd love to let you take your time fighting the Mask Mimic, but we don't have much time right now." In the next moment, the remaining curse on Kashiwagi's body was completely dispelled. Immediately after, Regoa raised his hand and released Bone Control. In an instant, the Mask Mimic was killed on the spot. Regoa looked at the dropped item and saw that the mask was exactly what he needed, so he picked it up without hesitation. Although it was an essential item for opening the boss stage, the thing looked honestly hideous. The wizard's horn, the demon eye, and the mask mimic's mask. As long as they gathered 49 of these 3 items in total, that would be enough. Still, Regoa was curious about how Ashoka had known this information in his previous life. In the report from that time, she had even emphasized that not a single item could be destroyed. In other words, if any item was damaged, entering the boss stage would become impossible. Judging from everything that had happened, Ashoka clearly knew secrets they did not. Right then, the squad captain suddenly said, "The Phoenix Guild is fighting nearby." Regoa looked back. They got here pretty fast. At that moment, several mask mimics were surrounding Ashoka's team. But there was not the slightest trace of worry in Ashoka's eyes. On top of that, the curses released by the mask mimics seemed to have no effect on her at all. With just a few slashes, she wiped them all out. Kronos chuckled. So that's how it is. She's injecting spiritual power into her slashes and cutting the curses apart directly. Regoa withdrew his gaze and said calmly, "We need to speed up too." Behind them, Ashoka slowly fixed her eyes on Regoa's group. One team member asked in confusion, "Captain, are you interested in that team?" Ashoka said quietly, "They seem to know how to dispel curses." The team member brushed it off. "Captain, you're overthinking it. They probably just got lucky and avoided being cursed." But in Ashoka's eyes, even though this was her first time seeing Regoa, that man gave off an incredibly powerful and mysterious feeling. Regoa finally completed the prerequisite conditions for challenging the boss. To reach this point, he had spent 5 full days inside the Forgotten Temple. Even Regoa himself had not expected monsters to keep pouring out endlessly for all 5 days. The squad captain was already starting to feel uneasy, because the situation had completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Right then, one of the team members suddenly trembled. Not far away, another fallen wizard slowly walked toward the group. Seeing this, Kashiwagi threw another punch and stepped forward. These things just don't end. The fallen wizard that had just appeared was killed instantly, exactly as expected. Kronos could not help sighing. "It's already been 5 whole days, and you don't look tired at all." As expected of the one I chose, Regoa said calmly, "I'm a necromancer. I only need to command servants to fight, and every time my servants kill a wizard, I can absorb part of their power." Because of that, Regoa had no need to rest at all. After 5 days and nights of non-stop fighting, his level had also reached 27. After that, Regoa collected all the materials dropped on the ground. Then he placed the items one by one into their designated positions. The dim stone pillars began glowing faintly once again. At this point, Regoa had already activated 48 stone pillars. As for the other raid teams, most of them had already left the dungeon. He turned to the group and said, "The gains from these past few days are already pretty good. You all head out first and sell the crystals. I'll stay inside a little longer." The squad captain nodded. "Then we'll follow your arrangement, Regoa." A short while later, Regoa brought his servants into the next room. Suddenly, the ground shook violently again. Kashiwagi frowned and said, "The shaking is getting more frequent. Shouldn't we leave the dungeon too?" Regoa replied calmly, "I deliberately sent them away because what comes next is us fully clearing this dungeon. We've fought non-stop for 5 days and still haven't seen the boss. You were wondering why I kept placing materials on those stone pillars, right? Because that is the condition for activating the boss. Once we find the stone pillar in this room, marked with the 3 tatterns, and place the final set of materials, the prerequisite will be complete." As he spoke, the dungeon's shaking became more and more violent, and the entire space began shifting unpredictably. Random attacks even started flying toward Regoa, forcing him to dodge quickly and move away. At the same time, Regoa scanned the surroundings for the final stone pillar. He had to hurry, because this dungeon felt like it could collapse at any moment. Just as Regoa was searching around, Kashiwagi suddenly shouted, "Regoa, I found it!" Regoa looked in the direction Kashiwagi pointed, and realized the final stone pillar was actually on the opposite side. If they wanted to reach it, they would have to find a way around. Right then, Kashiwagi shouted, "Throw me the materials." Without the slightest hesitation, Regoa immediately tossed them over. Kashiwagi ignored every attack around him and rushed straight to the stone pillar. Looking at the totem carved on it, he confirmed, "This is the last one." Regoa shouted, "That's the one. Place the materials under the pillar." In the next moment, the stone pillar emitted a faint glow. The attacks that had been flying at them suddenly came to a complete stop. Then the stone pillar began refracting mana again and again. Finally, a massive magic circle formed on the ground, and a hidden door quietly appeared. Regoa looked at the door and said in a low voice, I didn't expect a 2-star dungeon to be even more complicated than a 3-star one. Kashiwagi, stay sharp. The real battle starts now. Kashiwagi grinned. Regoa, relax. I'm a summon. I don't feel fatigue. Regoa stared at the hidden door, his expression gradually turning serious. Looks like this is the final stage. This room gives me a bad feeling. Then he slowly pushed the door open, feeling a trace of unease in his heart. What kind of boss would he encounter this time? But the instant the door opened, the boss inside had already been waiting for him. An attack shot toward Regoa at the same time. Almost the moment the door opened, Kashiwagi immediately stepped in front of Regoa. He gathered the undead power inside his body into his fist. In the next second, Kashiwagi punched out and shattered the incoming attack on the spot. At the same time, the monster released another curse attack. Regoa instantly felt his head grow heavy and hazy. It felt as if the monster would completely devour him in the very next second. Sensing something wrong with Regoa, Kashiwagi immediately stepped forward and asked, "What's wrong?" But Regoa did not answer. He only continued walking forward, slowly. The monster in front of him seemed to reveal a victorious smile, preparing to unleash its final strike and kill Regoa completely. But in the next second, Regoa suddenly spoke softly. "You think this little curse is enough to control me? I'm immune to every curse. In front of me, your curse is nothing but a joke."